My man James Ham. James, we were doing a couple of NFL overreactions here. Is it an overreaction to say the Cowboys could make the playoffs because of how good their offense is?
Sure. I mean, I don't think it's an overreaction.
Okay.
No, I think
Messed it up again too.
No, we did the same thing. We did the same thing.
No, I don't think it's an overreaction to say they could make the playoffs. What is their point differentials like a -1 or something, or -2? Like they're right in games. Like anytime you've got, again, offensive weapons like they do, I love the Pickens pickup. I thought that was spectacular. Even Javonte Williams, great pickup. Like he just didn't work out in Denver, and he looks great there. And then, I know it's not all that popular, but if we're going to trash the 49ers for having one of the worst kickers we've ever seen in the NFL, man, like having a guy like Aubrey is just like, it's crazy. Like that weapon that they have as their field goal kicker, who can line up and kick 70-yard field goals, it just changes the whole complexity of the game.
Bro, how did they find back-to-back kickers with like titanium in their feet? What was the other guy's name? Then they had the guy, I thought he'd be there forever, like 3 years ago, who would kick bombs. Donnie, you're listening. I know you know what I'm talking about. But they don't have him no more, and now they got Aubrey, who does the same damn thing. This is crazy. And we're stuck with Jake Moody for I don't know how long.
Who was the guy that T.O. said kicked the 100-yard field goal? Was it Nick Folk? Was that his name?
That's possible.
He was like, my kicker kicked the 100-yard field goal. It's like, no, he didn't. You don't add the yardage of the two field goals together.
Yeah, like, but watching, like, is there ever a question that Aubrey's going to hit it? I mean, he's got the biggest leg we've ever seen in the NFL. I mean, it's absolutely stunning. And he was just a former MLS player, right? Who was just hanging out at home, and his wife's like, "Hey, I think you could do that." And he's like, you're probably right. I think I could. Sure enough, there he goes. Yeah, wild.
I think part of their issue is there are going to be two, and we could talk about this more tomorrow, maybe, because maybe it's an overreaction. But I think there's going to be two divisions in the NFC that get multiple playoff teams, and I don't think it's going to be the NFCs.
Okay. All right. I actually don't think it's an overreaction, but we're going to find out pretty quickly. The Cowboys play the Packers, they play the Broncos, and they play the Chiefs. And, of course, they play the Eagles again. So if they're like, you're going against – those aren't all in a row, by the way. Those are just all on the schedule. Point being is, if your offense is good, you're going to have to prove it at some point against a really good defense.
That reminds me. Let's not bring up this conversation and this question after this week, because that's not going to count either.
Do that again?
We talk about, can this offense lead them to the playoffs?
Yeah.
And, my argument was they didn't really do much in the second half against the Eagles. They actually didn't do anything. And they went up against the Giants, which isn't a good defensive team. Donnie, everybody else, after this week, don't come talk to me, because they're playing another terrible defense.
They're playing Chicago. Dak Prescott, player of the week. We talked about that earlier. Dak Prescott about to be the player of the week. Hammer, we had the chance to talk to Anthony Slater not that long ago, about an hour ago. And Ant's obviously pretty locked into this situation with Jonathan Kuminga. Has been doing a lot of reporting on it the last couple of days, as we're just about a week and a half away from Sacramento Kings Media Day. I got to imagine the Golden State Warriors is right around there as well. Ant was pretty clear. He doesn't think Jonathan Kuminga is going to play for Sacramento. He thinks he's going to play for the Golden State Warriors. He just doesn't, he just doesn't know the context as to how, whether it's going to be the qualifying offer or they wind up coming to some other compromise. I'll ask you what I asked him is, once the book is completely shut on this Jonathan Kuminga thing, what do you think is the next order of business for Scott Perry and the Sacramento Kings?
Yeah, that's the most difficult question. It's to find the next Jonathan Kuminga. It's to find another player like that is in a situation that is untenable, and somebody's looking to make some different move than what they're currently doing. I mean, I know that this it's not like a secret here. This roster just isn't. It's not put together right. And I don't blame him for that. I mean, this is a roster he inherited at least a good portion of it. And the good portion of it is a good portion or almost all of the salary cap. So anything that he's been able to do here is going to be on the peripheral. Even adding Dennis Schroder, I'd like to tell you that adding Dennis Schroder is like a game changer, but you're looking at, a player who, like, realistically, where does he fit as far as like the hierarchy of this team? Domas probably number one, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Keegan Murray, Malik Monk. We're talking about he's probably your fifth, sixth best player. And so, like, expecting, a player like that to come in and instantly change things, or that's just not going to be simple. So, I think it's on Scott Perry right now to, like, and I'm sure he's already done this, is to assess, like, okay, if it's not Kuminga, then who else? And I kind of feel like the Kings have been sitting back with the understanding that there's a good chance that the Kuminga situation won't materialize. Like, they're not dumb. They know exactly where this thing is kind of heading, and you've got to leave a door open for it. But I think we also, a couple of weeks ago, we started hearing, oh, well, the Kings they love Malik Monk. They're not gonna trade Monk. If anything, it would be a different type of deal now. We're already seeing sort of the backtrack on this. And, I think we'll probably see more of that in the coming weeks as we get closer to the start of the season, where Malik Monk is likely going to be on this roster. That doesn't mean he's going to be on the roster by the end of the year or by February or next season, but it's looking more and more like he'll be here to start this season. And so again, it's on the front office to find players that are maybe underutilized in their current situation, and see if you can find something that works for you and works for another team to redistribute the talent on your roster.
And when it comes to this trade specifically, or potential trade or pursuit of Jonathan Kuminga, we talked about it earlier on the handoff, and also myself and D-Lo on this show. But for Jonathan Kuminga, would you take off the protections to get the deal done for that 2030 pick?
Yeah, we talked about this a little earlier. I mean, to make it 100% non, like, just I don't know, because it's not just Kuminga, right? You're giving up a player as well. And I think it would depend on the deal that I'm getting. Like, again, if you're giving up Malik Monk, I don't want to give up an unprotected pick, because to be honest with you, I still, like, in my mind, Malik Monk is a better player than Kuminga. Kuminga's got bigger upside, but that doesn't mean that he's ever going to reach that. We have no idea what Kuminga is, as far as like a lead number one, number two, number three player. So yeah, I think if it were for Monk, I would not. Now, if the Kings are the ones, well, I guess this is kind of contrary to what I was saying earlier. If the Kings were going to do the like $11 million in salary, and then they're going to have to find another $10 million to dump somehow, that's a whole nother situation. And again, it would be difficult for me to say, hey, give up an unprotected first round pick in that deal, because now you're the one who's on the hook, and you're the one who's over the luxury tax and has to find a way to claw back underneath the luxury tax. And there's no guarantee you're going to be able to. There's just not any teams with cap space right now. So, it's going to cost a premium. And that's what a lot of these teams look at. They look at, if it's the Nets, they're looking at teams around the league and saying, okay, who's going to give me something for my cap space? And, maybe the Kings are able to work out a deal where, they're able to shorten the length of a contract that the Nets have. I've talked about this before, where, I think Terrence Mann is on a 3-year, like $46 million deal. Maybe you could trade DeMar DeRozan to Brooklyn and save your $10 million, but basically they're getting out from underneath their money earlier. Got me? So they'll have more money next summer than they would, and then certainly the summer after that, they'd save a bunch of money where they wouldn't have Terrence Mann on the books at $16 million or something. But I think that there are ways in which you can save money here. It's just not going to be easy. And that's why the whole pick thing, it just becomes really complicated. Like if you're going to have to give up a pick to get back under the luxury tax, now you're looking at, like 2 players and 2 picks to get Jonathan Kuminga, and you have no idea what he is or who he is as a player, as far as like whether he can win games or not. It's tough.
And Hammer, I don't think that we talked about this together during the handoff, which is a great segment that airs daily, 11:45 to 12:28, to be exact. To me, it's the pick, the player, unprotected, whatever. If you think Jonathan Kuminga's the guy, like if Scott Perry thinks, no, this is a building block for our future. This isn't a guy that we're intrigued by. This isn't a guy we're curious by. This isn't a guy who, we could probably get in on the market with him. We know the Warriors don't want him. If he's a guy that you think can be a part of your foundation for the foreseeable future, I'm all for it. If you don't, then I'm fine with whatever decision you make. I'm perfectly fine with you holding on to the protections, the players, all of that stuff, if you just wanted to get in on the market. And these are things that at least I don't know the answer to. If Scott Perry loves Jonathan Kuminga, go get him. If not, well, it's perfectly fine. You're going to have to find a way to build this team at some point. And I think some of us were hoping that build would start now, but maybe it won't. Maybe it has to wait another few months. Maybe it has to wait another few years.
Yeah, and I think I kind of want to key on that too. Like what I think is what you guys asked. Would I give up the pick? And like that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. I'm a guy who's covered basketball for 15 years, going on 16 years. I know the game really, really well, but it's not like I haven't like misjudged a player's talent one way or another. And the same thing with Scott Perry. Scott Perry is credited with some great draft picks. Like you can go back and look, and when he's in Orlando, like Aaron Gordon, when he's here in Sacramento, he found De'Aaron Fox, although it was a top 5 pick. But you can go down the list of players that he's been able to acquire in the draft that are impressive, right? And I think that there's a lot of them. I can also go back through a bunch of these drafts and show you where he missed. The Kevin Knox of the world, the Harry Giles, the Justin Jacksons. There are plenty of dudes that he's missed on too. And that's the nature of the game. But you're hoping that whatever Scott Perry, and the reason why Scott Perry is here is that you trust his judgment and you hope that his basketball judgment is correct. And, like we can say a lot of, negative things about the way things worked out with Monty and Wes, but you can also point to like some really, really good successes. Like the move, while it hurt eventually to give up a pick, didn't really hurt that bad. But the move to get Kevin Huerter was huge. Malik Monk was huge. The move to draft Keegan Murray over Jaden Ivey, like I think it was a great move as far as like the way that it's worked out for the Kings. Of course, Ivy's still developing and had the knee injury and all that stuff. But if you look around, sort of a lot of the good things that they did, the Tyrese Halliburton draft pick, it's a good pick, but they also missed. And that's just the nature of the game. And so like, I would like to see what Scott's thoughts are on this. And I know like Scott Perry is fine going out and chasing Kuminga. I've had conversations, like he was fine going out and chasing this player because he, number one, thought he could get him for less as far as like what it would cost to acquire him. But he also felt like he could get him for below market value as far as a contract. Those things are changing very quickly. Mm-hmm. So, and what that does is your margin for error starts to get smaller and smaller. If all of a sudden you're giving up an unprotected first round pick, like he better be damn good. And on top of that, if all of a sudden he doesn't want 63 million, but he wants his 75 million, which is totally possible. I don't know one way or another whether that's what he's going to ask the Kings for if they were to get back into negotiations. That again is much higher than the 63 million. And so all of these things, it starts to narrow this margin of error for what an acquisition like this would mean. And, I think a lot of times, like, especially in the NFL, right? If I'm in the NFL, if I'm an NFL general manager and I'm sitting there in the third round and I'm looking at all of these picks, but I can go get a frontline starting wide receiver that I've watched for the last 3 or 4 years, who another team is for whatever reason willing to give up for a third round pick. I'm taking that every step of the way because the NFL draft is such a crapshoot from round 1 through all the way to round 7. I mean, the 49ers completely screwed up the 3rd overall pick and drafted a quarterback. And then a couple of years later, drafted a quarterback with the last pick in the 7th round, hundreds of picks in, and found their starter. So I would rather manipulate and find players that are good and that I know are good and that can step in and play than taking a whole bunch of shots in the dark, which is what NFL teams do. But the NBA is so different. Like, can you go get a proven player with a 2nd round pick? The answer is yeah, you can. I would rather do that than draft 2nd round picks a lot of the time. And so in the same thing with 1st round picks, like there's no guarantee that, that pick is going to be a good pick. By 2030 or whatever it is, whatever the pick is, it's very possible that the Kings are a really good team. And we don't know, that's a long time away from right now, but there are so many twists and turns that could happen between now and then and make that team good. And then that pick could be like a marginal pick. So it's just tough. I would like to say like the right answer is to do this or to do that. There is no guarantee on anything here. And Kuminga is one of the most like non-guaranteed pickups that you could do. He realistically is like drafting the same exact position, the number 7th pick in the NBA draft. It's not a guaranteed pick like 1, 2, or 3. It's in that bubble, that range where, the Kings lived for decades, where they drafted Bobby Hurley and Lionel Simmons and Walt Williams and Jason
Icon.
Williams. Yeah, but he's still that player. He's just a 22-year-old version of the 7th overall pick. That's all he is now because we still have no idea who he is.
James, the other day we were talking about Dennis Schroder and his performance in Eurobasket and winning the MVP, and he was just the engine for that Germany team, as he has been the last 4 or 5 years. And we were trying to figure out, and I think we know why, but we were just asking a question like, why isn't this getting more Kings fans and media excited and hyped up? The possibility of him being able to play on that level in the NBA with all the other talent that the Kings have on that roster. And he's played well in the NBA as well. It's not like he goes away. But in your opinion, what is it that's keeping people from looking at his performance in Eurobasket and even the way he played with Detroit down the stretch last year and being excited for the fact that he's on the Sacramento Kings?
Well, I mean, as far as Eurobasket, I'm going to say like level of competition, like most NBA teams out there, if you have a player who's a ball dominant point guard and who's getting a huge percentage of the usage rate and a huge percentage of the shots at the NBA level, almost every single team has someone in the same vein as Keon Ellis that you just go, okay, Keon, go slow him down. That's not the way it is in Eurobasket. Like there are there are good defensive guards. There are also a whole bunch of bad defensive guards. There are a bunch of European players that just don't play basketball. I mean, don't play defense at all. And, like we saw the difference. I think this is a prime example. You saw how Sasha Vezenkov absolutely tore up Europe, right? And then came to the NBA and was like, I thought like intelligence wise, had no problems hanging defensively. I thought defensively, like he had a very good feel and where to be and all that stuff. But athletically, was nowhere near an NBA player on the defensive side of the ball. And so that's and like, look, he was a EuroLeague MVP before he came to Sacramento, and I believe he's a EuroLeague MVP after he left Sacramento. He went back to Europe and is winning MVPs, whether it's in tournaments or it's in league play. He's a star over there. So that's the first thing I would point to, is that, he's going over there and playing against players that, they know how to play the game, and it's just a different style of basketball as well. But then the other thing I would point out too is that for as much as he was an impact player for Detroit last year, he wasn't for Golden State. And so, like, sometimes the situation lends itself to you having a lot of success, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you get into a situation and, like earlier we were talking about players who get to Sacramento, slip on a banana peel and forget how to play basketball. Like Marco Bellinelli was a really good player every stop he was at, except for in Sacramento. Like, he's just bad. Ramon Sessions, like, averaged something crazy, like 15 points and like 6 assists a game. The year before he played for the Sacramento Kings, when he played for Sacramento, he shot 19% from three and like 38% from the field, like, or lower. Like, he just became a bad basketball player. So I do think that, like, for as much as Dennis Schroder, played well for Detroit last year, we have plenty of other instances where he just didn't fit in. And that's going to be like, so it lends ourselves to this same question we asked with Kuminga. Like, we won't know until we get him on the court, until you see him on the court and he's playing with the guys that he's playing with, whether or not it's going to work or not. And I'd even say there are a lot of things about Sacramento's roster that are playing against Dennis Schroder having success here. And it's that you have a ball dominant small forward, you have a ball dominant center who is a distributor and likes the ball in his hands. And then on top of that, you got a bunch of dudes who don't shoot enough threes and don't shoot the three ball well enough. And those are things that could hurt Dennis Schroeder's chance of having success in Sacramento. Now, on the plus side, he's coming off a really good run in Eurobasket, and he's shown over his career that he can score and that he can push the tempo and he can, be an on-ball defender, pick up at half court. Like, there are things that Dennis Schroeder does really well, but I don't think the Kings are, like, if you were to go look at perfect fit teams, you would want like 3 or 4 shooters around him, not 1 or 2, and potentially, maybe 3 if you can get Keon Ellis on the floor. The Kings just don't have enough shooting as of right now in their current construction.
Real quick, I was going to say, I agree with Hammer and everybody else about, like, Schroeder. That was a bad time in Golden State, but he picked it up in Detroit. And if you look at the numbers, they're like identical. It was just
so I'm really so happy you brought that up. I'm gonna ask you to bring that back because, James, you just gave me a bunch of questions about Dennis Schroeder. So we'll continue to talk Kings basketball with our Kings Insider from the Insiders. It's James Ham with D'Lo and KC here on Sacramento Sports Leader ESPN 1320.
I thought he caught that.
Man, this is his 8th team since the 2021 season. Boston, Houston, LA Lakers, Toronto, Brooklyn, Golden State, Detroit, and the Kings. His 8th team since 21-22.
I think that has more to do with his contracts than anything else. Like, he has value. Like,
yeah,
he's been good.
He just doesn't. He's not a guy you sign to a $25 million per year deal. And when he was, my brother didn't sign it, unfortunately.
Yeah, he's a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
What's going on, Chatty House?
you got going on this weekend, Hammer?
Oh boy. It's been a busy couple of days. I've been trying to get through that first. So we did the Truckee / Tahoe thing on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, came back Saturday. The youngest had homecoming on Saturday night. Sunday, I watched football and started packing up my oldest on Monday and Tuesday. We moved him down to his new house in off Antelope.
Okay.
Because he starts at Davis in a week and a half, something like that. So knowing what I'm doing this weekend is like I'm kind of spun out from everything that's happened in the last few days.
Understood.
Yeah, we were down late last night moving more stuff. Got a little Zocalo in last night, which that Tacos de Consuelo was very good today for leftovers. So
I cannot remember the last time I've had them.
it's good.
It's been a while. There's one in the fountains.
Yeah, that's where we went last night. We used to
Oh.
go downtown all the time when we lived in Sac. But yeah, I still think the one downtown is way better than the one in the fountains, but not to disparage the good people that took care of us last night. Man, they make a good sangria.
Man, you can really screw those up, but if you get if you get it made right, that's a great drink.
Yeah, I love a good sangria. I might work to master the sangria here.
Well, if anybody's gonna master, it's James with everything that he has.
Well, that's
a bartender.
I'll just bring in.
He keeps the travel kit with him, apparently.
I do. I keep that travel kit in my car.
Never know when a party's gonna break out, and James is gonna have to make drinks.
Mm-hmm.
We
got friends that have access to the house in Truckee, so we go up there, and I need it there. When I come down, and we go to a friend's house down in Sacramento, it's better than looking through people's drawers to see if they have something.
Yeah. Yeah. I know I put it in the notes. What's tomorrow night?
Good job, baby. Good job, baby. Let's go.
We got football?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Live to fight another day.
Oh, Dolphins, Bills.
Oh.
Dead man walking.
That sucks for Jesse. Yeah. You guys can't see Jesse's reaction to my nefarious laugh.
Oh.
Now we're just naming Mexican food spots.
All
right, we're back, Hammer.
All right,
we're back, everybody.
We're
live, pal.
Real quick.
Uh-huh.
We live to fight another day.
That's a terrible impression. First of all, that is awful.
Well, I could say like this.
That's a little. Now that's better.
But he didn't really sound like that in that moment. See, y'all need to use your hands more.
That's better.
You live to fight another day.
And so, okay, so you back in? What is this?
Talk to me at about 7 o'clock tonight.
Well, yeah.
If Mets lose,
now
it becomes a 2-game deficit with 9 to play. I'm still tapped in. I mean, we got the Dodgers for 4. That could be the nail in the coffin. But if they can get the 2 back tonight, I'm tapped in.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All righty. Yeah, it was like an extra innings game that ended 5-1.
I love the
Well, when that happens, once you get to the third run, it's like forget it. This is destroying the spirit of extras. It's over. Giants win. Everybody get off the field.
The Giants had 1 hit going into that.
You're right.
Didn't they do that last week where they hit a grand slam in the 10th or the 11th?
Yeah, Patrick Bailey. Yeah, on that the walk-off joint.
Yeah.
Extra inning kings.
Wasn't nearly as nice as Nick Kurtz Grand Slam.
Very good.
493 feet.
Hammer, you just spoke pretty in-depthly about Dennis Schroder there a few minutes ago. You laid out some of the pros of him as a player, some of the cons of him as a player, and James is giving the universal sign that he can't hear a thing I'm saying.
Poor James.
So, yeah, I think James's earbud died, and he's just like, "Hey, can't hear you, pal." That's okay, James. Go. Now, James, go ahead, James. It's okay. It's okay.
I got you. Go ahead and now I can hear you.
Okay, we're
Go
back.
ahead and ask your question again.
Thanks, James. You were talking about Dennis Schroder a few minutes ago, and you kind of laid out the pros and cons of him as a player and the pluses and negatives of his fit on this team. It felt like there were a lot more negatives to Dennis Schroder being on this team than positives. But what stood out to me the most is that maybe that none isn't necessarily because of Dennis. It feels like it's just the structure of the team, because when you laid out, the ball dominant forward, the ball dominant this, it's like, I don't know who fits on this basketball team if Dennis Schroder doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point, what you're saying, but I mean, it's realistically, it's what I've said about Davion Mitchell, and it's what I've said about DeMar DeRozan. Like, there are pieces that fit and pieces that don't. And like, again, if you look at Dennis Schroder and say, okay, like, what's the perfect pairing to go with him? And number one, an elite scoring shooting guard that can shoot from anywhere on the court, that's perfect, right? And I even think that having Domantas Sabonis and his ability to play in the pick and roll and use Sabonis as like a giant hub in the middle of the court, that's going to really open things up and allow Dennis Schroder to get into the paint and to score at will, right? But that's all predicated on the fact that you have spacing on the court. And, you go back and watch mid 2000s basketball, or you go back and watch mid 90s basketball, there's no spacing on the court. The game's just totally different. That's just not the modern NBA. Like the modern NBA is space and pace. And if you don't have shooters, then Dennis Schroder, just like De'Aaron Fox and just like Malik Monk, they have a tough time getting into the key and breaking down the defense if there isn't already spacing. And so, yeah, I mean, like, look, Dennis Schroder, like him and Malik Monk, I don't think they're that far off as players. I think they're similar players. I think Monk has a little bit more flash and a lot more vertical. Dennis Schroder is a much better defender. Neither one of them are pure point guards at all. But they're not that far off as far as player comps. And like players like that, in order to maximize players like that, you've got to be able to shoot the ball. And the Kings don't. I mean, you get past Keegan Murray, who shot 34% from three last year. He didn't even it wasn't like 41.5% when he was a rookie or 46% when he was a second year player. He dropped all the way to 34%. But then you look at, the next is Keon and Zach LaVine. Once you get past those guys, like, who's going to play major minutes that can actually shoot the three, not only at volume, but at a higher percentage than like 32, 33%. And the answer is like nobody. Like Domantas Sabonis is your next best shooter, and he only shoots 2 times a game. DeMar DeRozan tried to up his attempts last year, and by the end of the season, his 3-point percentage plummeted. So that's why we keep saying, like, hey, this roster is poorly designed for today. And again, I'll keep saying this. It's not that I dislike Dennis Schroder as a player or that I dislike DeMar DeRozan as a player. It's that I just don't think they fit with what you're trying to do. Now, if you were to swap out DeMar DeRozan for a legitimate 3-point threat at the small forward position, and I'm not talking about Jonathan Kuminga. Like, Jonathan Kuminga would only compound these issues that the Kings already have. If you were to swap out, DeMar DeRozan for a guy who, even if he averages 12 to 15 points a game, but he shoots 38 to 40% from three, all of a sudden Dennis Schroder makes a lot of sense to me. but it's about, trying to match pieces. And I know I've told you guys this before. It's like the original Batman with Michael Keaton, when the Joker puts out a bunch of poisoned like cosmetics, and you're okay to use a deodorant, but you can't use a deodorant and like the lipstick or it kills you. And that's the Kings have all of these pieces that when combined don't work at all and makes everything else not function properly. But alone, they're fine. They're good players. You just have to have the right type of style of play and the right style of players around them to make it all work. And that's where I just have a problem. And again, I agree. It's not a Dennis Schroeder's, issue, but at the same time, Dennis Schroeder's a 32-year-old free agent, has played for 10 teams in his career, including 8 in the last 4 years. So it's not like he's been the solution for a lot of teams. He is a player that's wanted and that you probably can move, but also like you didn't go out and get a top 10 point guard. You didn't get probably a top 20 point guard, and that's okay. But it's kind of like status quo. And my biggest concern is like, how does he fit? And the real answer might be he fits a vision of this team that Scott Perry has for 2 years from now or a year from now or at the trade deadline, but not so much the team today. And Scott Perry's not worried about that today. What he's worried about is getting pieces and then trying to reconfigure the rest of the roster to make it all work.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said there, Hammer. And the Kings' issue is, I think they have quite a few people that are only, how do I put this? They're only their best when everything around them is perfect.
Mm.
And they don't have, I don't think they have anybody that makes people around them better. They don't have a person that what's the term, like that is the sun. Like they're there, so everything revolves around them, and it's good. They need, like, you look at Domas, you look at Schroder, you look at DeRozan. They need everything around them to be perfect for them to be the best versions of them. And that's kind of the issue. You don't have, I don't even know if they had that before the trade. I don't know. They had that for a while. And that's kind of what everybody in the league is looking for, not just the Kings. Or if you don't have that, you find that complement of people around those one or two players you're talking about. But that's the struggle right now. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for either the right combination around the right player or the right player that makes everything around them, that makes that the right combination, because they're there.
Yeah, and like to that point, like I disagree slightly about Domas. Domas is like he's no, but realistically, here's the problem though. No, I'm with you though. So the problem is you do have a player who is like the sun that everything else revolves around, but the players that revolve around him have to be the right type of player that space the floor. And again, like just look at, I know he's not the same player, but look at the way that Jokic plays and the way that they've designed their team around Jokic with 3-and-D players at every single position. Maybe Jamal Murray isn't a great 3-and-D player, but you're willing to put up with that because of his ability to go, nitro and score 40 at any point. The other guys around him, they're those types of players that are 3-and-D players that space the floor. So if you're going to have a center of the universe player, which is what I consider Jokic, I consider Domas, even like Luka, he just plays it from a different position. If you're going to have those types of players, then you have to build the roster around them. And I think in year one, they did build the roster around him and everything worked out great. We see all of these players shoot career highs in 3-point percentage. The spacing was incredible. And who took advantage of the spacing? De'Aaron Fox, because of his speed and quickness. And also Malik Monk took advantage of that spacing that they were able to create using Domas as the center of the universe. As we got deeper into the run with Domas as the lead, they went away from that idea, not just in the way that they played basketball on the court, but in the style of player that they went out and found. And part of it's because, it's like, hey, Kevin Herter's fine. He's shooting the three. Great. That's fine. But we need a better defensive version of him. Right. And the second you tried a different defensive version of it, it didn't work. And then Kevin Herter's 3-point percentage dropped. The percentage of the guy in Chris Duarte never ever materialized. And so you take these little steps back every time. And then you're like, oh, we had too many playmakers get hurt in the playoffs. So as opposed to finding like a third point guard or something, you went out and got a ball dominant playmaking small forward. And again, you took away what made that team work and function, and that's spacing, and that's Domas leading the way and sort of creating this, again, planet circling the sun. And if you have a guy like Domas, you almost have to do it that way. You have to build a team that's like very like 3-and-D centric, or even like just 3-point specialist centric. The problem that you have is that a lot of these guys that they've brought in, they just take away a little bit each time. And it's kind of why it's like, again, I don't have anything against DeMar DeRozan. I think DeMar DeRozan is a first ballot Hall of Famer. And I think he's a spectacular scorer still at age 35. Absolutely crazy. But not only does he kill the spacing with Domas, but his increase in shots over what Harrison Barnes was before took away even more spacing because you limited who Keegan Murray could be. And so again, it's this little tiny, it's like it's death by 1,000 paper cuts, but you can see how it's not one thing that went wrong. It's a series of these little tiny things that impact everyone around them. Again, DeMar DeRozan taking 17 shots versus 9 for Harrison Barnes. Harrison Barnes being a 39% 3-point shooter versus DeMar DeRozan being a 32% 3-point shooter. And all of these things, they impact each other. And honestly, I didn't think that they could, as fast as they were able to get good and build this team, I thought there was no way that it would fall apart this quick. But it's when you step back and you start analyzing all of these tiny moves that impact the next move and the next move and the next move, that's where you start seeing the drop off. And it's unfortunate it happened this way.
Real quick.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with Domas' situation, and we've talked about this before, is, and we've seen this in real time, and that's why they went and got DeMar DeRozan. Not saying he might have been the right fit, but the idea was right, is you take one piece away from what you're building around Domas, Malik Monk going down, and Domas can't make up for that. If you take one piece away from Jokic, if you take a scoring piece away from Jokic, you're like, okay, I'll make up for that. I'll just start shooting and have 30-plus points per game while this guy's out or something like that. You take one piece away, we saw it that second year. When Malik Monk was gone, they had nobody that could get to the foul line. They had nobody that could create. They were shooting 55 threes a game because that's all they could get outside of De'Aaron Fox. And that's the problem. If everything's good, if everybody's there, cool. Like you can run things through Domas. But if something goes wrong, if one of your creators specifically goes wrong, gets hurt or something like that, you're in a bad spot because he can't make up for that.
Well, yeah, but I mean, neither did Kevin Herter. And for that matter, neither did De'Aaron Fox. He didn't make up for the fact that, that Malik Monk was out. Like they didn't have anyone that could take that step. And again, I think it's part of the faultiness of the build itself, where, like go back to the Kings of the Glory years, you had complementary pieces off the bench, in like Bobby Jackson, but also it's guys like Lawrence Funderburk, it's guys like Hito Turkoglu, it's guys like Scott Pollard that played specific roles. And the way that their roles were built was that if someone did go down, they could take on more because they weren't asked to do that much. But when it's like, hey, Weber's out for 6 months, we're going to need you to average more than 4 or 5 points a game. It's like, okay, I've got 7 in me, maybe 8. Like, and if you go around the room and like, hey, you can keep finding people that have that little bit more to give, then it works. But, losing a guy 70 games into a season, there aren't a lot of teams that can recover like quickly. especially when the rest of your team wasn't built to withstand that loss.
Do you think Scott Perry, because you brought up DeMar DeRozan a lot in that conversation, do you think that Scott Perry likes DeMar and believes he adds a lot to this team?
I'm sure he does. Like, they made the decision pretty quickly that they weren't going to move him.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was going. Like, if he brings, and you're certainly not alone in this thinking, if he brings so many, I don't know that complications is the right word, to the style of play to this team, should Scott have been a little bit more aggressive in his attempt to move him, or even had a desire to move him if he didn't?
Well, I mean, this gets into opinions on basketball, and my opinion is yes, he should have been more aggressive. But that's just because I just watched a year of basketball with him on the court. And while Scott Perry watched plenty of Kings basketball, he also watched basketball around the league, and maybe didn't sit there and watch all 82 Sacramento Kings games and sort of see the highs and the lows, the goods and the bads. But look, I think at the end of the day, they kind of have an idea of when they want to bail on a lot of this roster. And, if you're going to trade a player like this, number one, you have to have value because it is talent. Number two, you're going to have to convince the owner, because the owner had a big part in DeMar DeRozan being on this team, and, trying to convince an owner why a Hall of Famer isn't fit for your roster build isn't all that simple, right? Especially when he played a part in going out and getting this player. So I think it's complicated because, DeMar is a guy that everyone likes, and, that is a great, an NBA great. And, I saw ESPN put him on the bubble or something for the Hall of Fame. And it's just that's not even remotely close to factual. I mean, I don't know if he's a first ballot, but he gets in the first 5 years without any question. He's a Hall of Famer, 6-time All-Star. He's number, I think, 27 all time in scoring, and will probably move up to closer to number 20 by the time it's all said and done. This is an elite player, but that doesn't matter in the game of basketball. It's 5 players on the court. It's not like any other sport where you rely on fit as much as anything else. The way players fit together matters so much. And that's where I think, again, the Oklahoma City Thunder went out last season and spent $30 million on a mid center, a dude who's just flat out just not even top 20 in the league. Maybe he's number 18 in the league, right? And then they went out and won a championship because he fit perfectly. And that's just kind of the way basketball works. You have to value fit over almost everything. And that's the one thing I would say, that as the noise got louder and louder over the last year with Monty, he stopped worrying about that as much as anything else. And that's where I think you start to make mistakes, because he understood fit. That's how he got that team to Beam Team 1 to just take off, because those guys all fit together. But that doesn't mean that people are going to maintain the same level of success that they did before. And you got to constantly try to rebuild and get better at every single position on the court, but with keeping in mind this idea of fit. And he got away from that. And that's where to me, things got to where they are today, where I don't think anyone has a humongous amount of faith in where this team is heading this season or next.
Well, when you're trying to convince the owner to go for a player, not go for a player, maybe the messenger matters just as much as the message, because he may have gotten to the point where I'm not listening to anything that you say. You've been wrong for years. Mm-hmm. So this is what I want, and this is what needs to be done. Mm-hmm. Now you got a guy in here who maybe he does listen to his message a little bit more, and he's a different messenger. And if he says, no, I think this is the way we should build something, and this is the way we should go about it, maybe he falls back a little bit, because it's somebody that his resume speaks a little different to Vivek. That may be the case.
Yeah, it's also possible that, Vivek has a certain amount of time that he'll listen to somebody. and then he starts to see the writing on the wall, and he bails on the prospect of what's happening. I mean, like, to be honest, this is year 13, 14 was the first year, right? So this is year 12 or year 13 of Vivek's ownership, and the guy that he stopped listening to is the only one that led his group to a playoff berth and to 2 straight plus 500 seasons. And, so like, while Monty's lasting legacy here in Sacramento probably isn't great because of the things that happened on the way out the door, if we would have backed up, 2 years, he was a NBA's executive of the year, and he did do good things. And, so this isn't all about beating up on Monty. You got to be fair and balanced when it comes to this stuff. And
we can keep beating up on Vivek because it's not just who he doesn't listen to. He did listen to Pete D'Alessandro.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we could fault him for a million things. I mean, but when you're this bad for this long, there's blame to be placed everywhere, except with Jerry Reynolds. You don't blame Jerry Reynolds for anything.
For nothing.
You blame everybody else.
That's right.
That's just a fact.
It is. It's actually, it should be, instead of farm to fork, it should be don't blame Jerry. Instead of the stupid rabbit, it should be a poster of Jerry Reynolds that says don't blame him.
Yeah. Hey, I know we're running out of time, but I want to pull this up. It says Vivek listens until he doesn't. And I don't think that that's the case. I think Vivek is always in their ear. It's just a matter of when do they break and allow his voice to be bigger in the room. And
Vivek
that's when
is always listening. It's just a matter of to who.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
It's just a matter of to. Great stuff from James. I feel like we haven't talked to you in a really long time on our show, so it was great to spend some time together. Of course, we'll be with you. Hopefully, all of you will tomorrow morning when James and Kyle take the air with the Insiders at 10 a.m. here on Sacramento Sports Leader ESPN 1320.
Vamos Padres.